Okay, so here's part two. This is just going to be a video review of everything I went over in the kidneys and give you another perspective, hearing someone else's diagram and talking about this as well. So hopefully this helps out.
The kidneys are considered our most important organs of excretion. They eliminate a couple of different things, water being the most important, but also nitrogenous waste. What was the nitrogenous waste? The nitrogen waste. Urea, very good. Urea, water, electrolytes, and various toxins and drugs. So the urinary system, very simply, includes these structures. The kidneys are responsible for forming urine from the blood. They basically filter the blood and create the urine. The ureters carry the urine from the kidneys to the bladder. The bladder is just a temporary storage area for the urine. And the urethra is the tube that carries the urine from the bladder to the outside of the body. All right, so we're going to start with the kidneys. They're in the posterior aspect of the abdomen in the flank area. They're outside of the peritoneum, so we call them retroperitoneal. They're behind the peritoneal membrane. They're protected by the ribs, renal fascia, and adipose tissue. Adipose tissue, you already know, is what? Fat. There's a thick pad of fat that surrounds the kidneys to help protect them. So very simply, 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, 1 bladder, 1 urethra. Urethra and ureter look very similar. Be careful you don't confuse the two. 2 very different structures. The kidney has 3 distinct regions. It's got a cortex and a medulla, and also something called the renal pelvis. And the renal pelvis is basically the open area in the middle. The cortex is the outer region, and the medulla is the deeper inner region. So this opening in the middle here, this is called the renal pelvis. And basically it's a funnel shape, and that's the opening to the end of the ureter, the proximal ureter right here. These things in here, those are called the renal pyramids. They're triangle shaped. They make up the medulla. Anywhere from 8 to 18 of these little triangle shapes in your kidneys. And this outer portion out here is the cortex. Blood supply. Blood supply is important in the kidneys, and the blood supply comes from the renal artery, which comes right off the aorta. About 25% of our entire cardiac output goes to the kidneys. So the kidneys are very sensitive to changes in blood pressure. If the blood pressure goes down, then the kidneys don't have as much blood to filter. If they don't have as much blood to filter, then they don't have as much to make urine with. So one of the first things that happens when our blood pressure goes down is we make less urine. So what do the kidneys do? They do quite a lot. They excrete that urea, that nitrogen waste. They also secrete uric acid, ammonia, and creatinine. Creatinine is a byproduct of muscle breakdown. It's one of the end results of muscle breakdown. The kidneys are hugely important in regulating blood volume because they determine how much water leaves the body. So if they let go of a lot of water, our blood volume goes down, right? Does that make sense? If they hold on to a lot of water, they reabsorb a lot of water, then our blood volume is going to go up. If our blood volume goes up, what happens to our blood pressure? Up. If the kidneys get rid of water, then our blood volume is going down and our blood pressure will go down, right? Did you ever hear of anybody taking blood pressure pills that make them urinate a lot? They're water pills. They're getting rid of excess volume in the hopes that their blood pressure will come down. The kidneys can also regulate the electrolyte content of the blood. The kidneys can say, nope, we need more sodium. I'm going to reabsorb more sodium. They can say, oh, we got to get rid of some calcium. I'm going to get rid of some calcium. They can say, oh, we need more chloride. Hold on to chloride. So they can regulate the electrolyte content of the blood. Okay, so not only the water volume, but how many electrolytes are coming and going. The kidneys play a major role in the regulation of acid-base balance. Again, they control how many hydrogen ions leave in the urine or get held onto in the blood. So if we hold on to hydrogen ions, we're holding on to acids, we're going to make the blood more acidic. If we let go of all those hydrogen ions, we're losing hydrogen ions, then the blood's going to become more alkaline. All right, they play a role in the regulation of blood pressure. How do the kidneys regulate blood pressure? I just told it to you. If they hold on to water, it's going to increase the blood pressure. If they excrete the water, it's going to lower the blood pressure. And the kidneys also play a role in the regulation of red blood cell production. Anybody remember how? The kidneys get the message that the oxygen level is low because there's fewer red blood cells. The red blood cell concentration is low, so the oxygen level is low. The juxtaglomerular nephrons get the message in the kidneys that the oxygen level is low. So they secrete a substance called erythropoietin. They secrete that. It goes to the bone marrow, tells the bone marrow to increase their blood cell production. It will continue to increase its blood cell production until the oxygen levels rise again, and then the kidneys shut off. Negative feedback. Now, we're going to take, we did the overall anatomy, kidneys, ureter, bladder, urethra. Now we're going to take the kidneys and look at the microscopic units, the little microscopic things going on inside the kidney. The nephron is the functional unit of the kidney. And there's millions of nephrons in each kidney, looking at these tiny little microscopic functional units of the kidneys. These are the tiny little filters that will take the blood and turn it into urine. All right, so the nephron has two parts. It's composed of tubules, which are hollow tubes, and blood vessels. So you're going to know all of these parts. You will, trust me. Trust the O. Woosah. This is what you need to know. This picture. All right? This is more accurately what it looks like. We simplify it to look like this. All right? So I'm going to do it on the board because sometimes it's easier to draw and explain as we go along. Okay, so the first part of the nephron is a big tangle or a cluster of blood vessels. So blood flow comes in this way, it goes through this tangle of blood vessels, and then it leaves this way. Okay? And remember, millions of these in each kidney. This is like in and then out. This structure right here is called the glomerulus. The glomerulus is blood vessels. So basically, this little artery here is part of a whole series of little arteries that came off the aorta. Remember I said the aorta sends a lot of blood to the kidneys, so it's coming this way. Around the glomerulus, we start with the tubules, hollow tubes. And the first part of the hollow tube is like a cup. And it sits right over that cluster, that ball of blood vessels. And this first part is called Bowman's capsule. So Bowman's capsule just simply sits like a cup or like a hood around the glomerulus. The next part of the tubule is a twisty, turny, windy type of tubule. I just did a couple of waves here because it's really hard to draw, but I'll show you the picture again. It's very twisted and topsy-turvy kind of. This part of the tubule is called the proximal convoluted tubule. What's proximal mean? Closer to the beginning or closer to the point of attachment. So proximal here, it's closer to the beginning. How about convoluted? What's convoluted mean? Convoluted means not straight. So proximal convoluted tubule, it's the twisty-turny tubule that's closer to the beginning. That's all it means. Then it takes a turn and goes this way. It's going down. So we call that the descending limb, right? Because it's going down. Descending limb, and then it makes a turn and comes back up. This turn right here is called the loop of Henle. Not Helen, Henle. So if this was a descending limb, what do you think this one is? Ascending limb, very simple. After you hit the ascending limb, then you get another twisty, turny, windy tubule. If this one was proximal, what's this one going to be? Distal. So this is the distal convoluted tubule. Okay? That's the basic structure of the nephron. Then a bunch of these tubules connect into this structure here. There's fewer of these. This is the collecting duct. And the collecting duct dumps into a place called the calyx. So that's the basic structure of the nephron. Now, just as an overview, blood filters through the glomerulus. Blood is being pushed, the strength of the blood being pushed out of the heart pushes the blood through the glomerulus. So it's being pushed through here. As it gets pushed through the glomerulus, there's holes in the walls of the glomerulus. And as it's being pushed through, most of the water and dissolved substances in the blood get pushed out of these blood vessels and into Bowman's capsule. Anybody remember what the transport mechanism was called that uses a push? Filtration, very good. Filtration. This is the best example of filtration in the body right here. The substances are not moving from high to low concentration, which would be what? Diffusion. Remember, high to low concentration was diffusion. They're not moving because of a difference in concentration. They're moving because they're being pushed through. It's like if you consider the walls of the glomerulus made of like mesh, so just the water and small particles get through, and when they go through, they get collected in this first part of the tubule, which is Bowman's capsule. If you think about blood, blood is not just blood cells, right? Blood is water, electrolytes, nutrients, proteins, all kinds of stuff. When it goes through the glomerulus, the red blood cells are too big, the proteins are too big, they can't get through the walls of the glomerulus, but everything else can. The water can, sodium ions, chloride ions, calcium ions, that kind of stuff can get pushed through here, especially the water. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slide for just a minute. Glomerulus there, Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, descending limb, loop of Henle, ascending limb, distal convoluted tubule, collecting duct. You need to know that pathway. This is more what it looks like. Simply, very simply, these are all urine tubes. This is showing you how the blood vessels surround those tubes. And the name of those blood vessels are peritubular capillaries. What does peri mean? Around. So they're peritubular, they're the capillaries that are around the tubules. That's all it means. And I said the collecting ducts dump into the calyx or the calyces. That's these little regions right here. These little pieces that come off the renal pelvis. That's the calyx. The calyces open up into the renal pelvis, and the renal pelvis dumps into the ureter.
Okay, so hopefully that helps fill in any gaps where I may have left off on my lecture. Not an expert in these, so I try and make sure that we'll get expert material for you. Hope this helped.